Good morning. My name is Vanessa, and it is my pleasure to introduce one of our Cultivating a Calling keynote speakers today. Kyle Schwartz is a third grade literacy teacher at Dowell Elementary here in Denver, Colorado. She ensures every day that her children receive the excellent education they deserve, and she has been a driving force in education. She worked with a nonprofit city year before moving to South America to partner with the Chilean Ministry of Education and the United Nations Development Fund. Later, Kyle brought her passion for transforming education back to her hometown of Denver as a Denver teacher resident. Kyle has led her fellow educators in professional development focused on meeting the needs of students who are learning English at both national and local teaching conferences. This year, Kyle Schwartz won the Denver Public Schools Equity in Education Design Challenge by creating solutions to differentiate lessons based on students' language skills. Recently, a simple yet powerful lesson created in Kyle's classroom received international attention. You may recognize her from TV. She asked her students to finish the sentence, "I wish my teacher knew." And her students' candid and poignant responses inspired the hashtag I wish my teacher knew. This sparked a national conversation about the realities that our students face when they are at school. She has also partnered with Lowe's Home Improvement to bring attention to the need for school resources in our communities through the Toolbox for Education program. Above all else, Kyle dedicates herself to ensuring that every child receives the excellent education that they deserve. Join me in giving a warm welcome to Kyle Schwartz. Sorry, so much tech.
Very interesting feeling to hear somebody talk about you in the third person. All right. Well, my name is Kyle Schwartz, and thank you for having me. This is very different than my typical day. Usually I'm like covered in glue stick, and like people are interrupting me and telling me that they have to go to the bathroom. One time I actually came home and I found like a full glue stick, like the cap, like I found the full glue stick like in my hair. So I see some people laughing because that's happened to them too, yeah? Well, you see, my typical day, I have my dream job. Does anyone else have their dream job here? I see some people like, my principal's not here. I'm not raising my hand. Well, I have my dream job, and my dream job is being a third grade teacher at Dowell Elementary in Southwest Denver, about 10-15 minutes south of here. But that was not always my dream job, not even close. A lot of people that know me don't know this about me, but like was just said in this beautiful introduction, I am actually not from Denver, even though I claim it as my hometown. I was born in Central Illinois in a tiny, Central Illinois. I was born in a tiny farm town, but town is generous. It's actually an unincorporated community called Farmingdale, Illinois. And my parents are from farm towns and generations back farm towns. And then when I was 5 years old, both my parents lost their jobs, and they made a decision that a lot of people have made that led them to Colorado. They said, it sucks here, let's move to Colorado. So when I was 5 years old, my parents moved to Colorado from Farmingdale, Illinois, and my dad had to find an apartment, he had to find a job, and he didn't want to be too close to the city, so he wanted to be in the middle of nowhere, and he found an apartment with 3 months rent just south of County Line Road. Well, for those of you who live in Denver or from Denver, you might know that everything south of County Line Road in the last 20 years exploded into Highlands Ranch. But at the time, it was in the middle of nowhere. So I was this girl from Farmingdale, Illinois, and I was picked up and I was placed into like the suburb of all suburbs. And I remember being a kindergartner. I remember that first day of school, and I don't think anyone like explicitly teased me, but I found out like right away I had weird clothes, I talked weird, I had like a country accent. I talked weird, and just a cherry on top, I also smelled weird. So I made a decision, and I remember thinking this thought, like even as a 5-year-old, this like a very adult and like malicious thought. I thought like, well, you don't like me, I hate all of you, I don't need any of you, I'm not doing this, I hate you, you hate me, that's the way the rest of my life is gonna be. And I was like a really bad kid in school. And I'm not like, oh, she was annoying, like no, like I like bit my teachers, like way past when biting teachers is appropriate, like I punched a girl in the nose and broke her nose. I stabbed a kid with scissors once. I know, you're like, oh my God, they were safety scissors. They were safety scissors. But like, I was like, really, and I was just like, I hate all of you, and good, because you hate me too. Does anyone have that kid in their class? Yes. I also have those students in my class sometimes, and the technical term for that is payback. But none of my teachers ever knew about this like generational past that I came from in these tiny farming towns and how important that was for me. And none of my teachers ever knew that. And so really, I had this like angsty, angry attitude, like far past being a teenager. And I'm happy to say that that is not my attitude towards life now. But my path in life has really taken me to teaching, even though I never would have thought I would grow up to become my arch nemesis, which was an elementary school teacher. But now I am. I'm an elementary school teacher, and like all the teachers here, I show up for students, and I show up and I teach an amazing group of third graders, and I show up and I sing multiplication tables, and I try not to kill the caterpillars in the science experiment again. And I try to make sure that Julio doesn't pour glue on our friends' heads again. And I do all these things because I truly care about kids, like all of us here. And I really believe that we can show up for kids. And it's not just a teacher every day that shows up for kids. You know, it's oftentimes a listener and a storyteller, an encourager, a supporter. We just last week did ER suffixes so in class, so I'm getting them all in. And we can be a community builder. And that's what I really believe in. I believe in building community in our classrooms. And there are a million little ways that I do that in my class. You'll hear these 3 words in my class all the time. You'll hear, I care about you, I believe you, and I got your back. I care about you, I believe you, and I got your back. In my greeting to my students every morning, I say, like, I care about you, do you believe me? I care about you, I care about you. And one of my students was like, ugh, like, Miss, I know you care about me, you tell me that all the time. And it was like the best eye roll I've ever gotten. And I say, I believe you. And that's a great, great little phrase for teachers. Because, you know, they come in and they're like, Miss, I didn't do my homework, I blah, 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 like, and you just like sat them like, I believe you. I believe that this happened. Now we have to solve this problem. And I got your back. Because when a student shares like, you know, like, Miss, you know, my dog died last night. Or, Miss, I just found out that my dad got deported and I'm leaving Friday too. You know, we have to have something to say to that. And my class says, I got your back. And those are some of the million little ways that we build community in our classrooms every day. And one of those little ways that I did that is I asked my students what they need me to know. And because I am an ELA certified teacher, I turned it into a sentence stem. I wish my teacher knew. And they responded really openly and honestly. And I've been doing this for like 3 years in my classroom. And they'll say things like, I wish my teacher knew I don't have a pencil at home to do my homework. I wish my teacher knew I don't have books at home for my reading homework. I wish my teacher knew that I want to go to college. And, you know, these words are just so open and honest and candid in the way that only kids can be. And we listen to that. And we respond to that as teachers. And one day I saw one of my notes, and the note that a child had left, and I took a picture of it, and I had like just gotten on Twitter. I had like half of a follower. And I took a picture and I shared it with other teachers. And this crazy thing happened. Like other teachers started doing it in their classroom, like across the country, and they started taking pictures of their students' notes and sharing it. And then the news media got a hold of it, and it was all crazy. And we were on like TV shows, which is nuts. And my grandma found out about this, and she said, "Kyle, I heard you're on a TV show. Can you fax me the TV show?" And I said, I know. And I said, "Grandma, like I can't fax you a TV show." And she said, "Well, fine. Fax it to Uncle Gary. He'll print it out and bring it to me." But what this did was it started this national conversation about the realities that our children face, and the realities that they face at school and when they go home from school. And it's a conversation that needs to happen, because my students are one of a kind, but they are not unique. I serve a community that is incredibly strong, a community that is full of hard workers and problem solvers, but I also serve a community where 92% of our kids are living in poverty. And if we stretch that to Denver, 70% of the kids in Denver are living in poverty. And nationwide, 46% of all kids in our public schools live in poverty, 46%. And if you are a child living in poverty, you are almost guaranteed to go to a school with a high concentration of poverty like mine. But if you are a child who's not living in poverty, you are almost guaranteed to go to a school with a low concentration of poverty. So we have this story of two Americas in our public schools. And you can hear these facts from me, but when people hear these facts from our students, they find out what it's like to live out that fact every day. They find out, I wish my teacher knew I don't have pencils at home to do my homework. You know, I wish my teacher knew I don't have a friend to play with me. And I think that really cuts through all the clutter. And that's the lesson that I want to bring to you that I've learned through all this, is that our students are really powerful. And that is not like some kumbaya, like huggy, fluffy teacher moment. Like, because people who know me know I'm not that teacher. But like really, they're really powerful. They have the power to challenge. Because there's this dominant narrative about my students. There's the way that the media and the zeitgeist talks about my students, about students who are living in poverty, about students who have immigrant backgrounds, about students who are Latino. There's a way that they're talked about, and I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's accurate. But when we allow our students to share their stories, we challenge that dominant narrative. And they say things like, I wish my teacher knew I want to go to college. And I wish my teacher knew I want to learn more about velociraptors, and I want to learn more about science. And it challenges that dominant narrative. And our students also have the power to inform. One of my students is like the happiest, kindest student you'll ever meet. She's always helping the other kids. If you spill something, she's like the first to clean it up. But she answered to this, I wish my teacher knew that my dad was deported when I was 3, and I haven't seen him in 6 years, and I still miss him. That was the first thing she wanted me to know. And that really teaches people what it's like. That really, like 100 articles, 100 news stories can't compare to that 9-year-old girl's voice. And our students also have the power to give. Because after they were all on TV, they came in and they're like, Miss Swartz, we're famous now. You know what that means? And I was like, nice try, you still have homework. And they're like, no, we're famous now, so we have to help people. And they came up with this idea of starting a book drive. And so I went with it. We started a book drive, and then 7 News got a hold of it. And it ended up being this citywide book drive. And those same kids, the same kids who don't have books at home, who don't have pencils at home, the same little boys who sometimes come to school wearing their mother's shoes because they don't even have a pair of their own, those same kids collected 40,000 books, 40,000 books, and spread them across our city because our students are really powerful. And so I leave you today not with the words of my students, but the words with a fantastically powerful girl from Pakistan, Malala Yousafzai. My students love learning her story. And she says, one child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world. So welcome to ESET 2, and I look forward to changing the world with you.
Thank you, Kyle. So we both have some time just to do a little Q&A. I think we can all agree what Kyle has done with her students is phenomenal. So does anyone have any questions that you want to ask her, anything you're curious about? And we have some people coming out of the microphone.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you started the sentence, and I was the teacher. How you started the lesson to get all your ideas.
Yeah, the way the lesson worked, it's actually a lot less complicated than people think, but I literally just wrote on our whiteboard, I wish my teacher knew, and I passed out little papers and I said, finish the sentence. And from there, kids wrote and they shared out what they wanted me to know, but I left it open for them. I said, you can put your name on it, or you can keep it a secret and put it in this little secret box over here, or you can share it with the class. And I think one of the surprising things from this is almost all the students were raising their hand, I want to share mine to the class. I want to tell everyone this. I mean, it was my whole class, they couldn't get enough. They're like, can we do another one? So it was just as simple as saying, finish the sentence, and then we shared out with the community in our classroom. And one little illustration of that is there was a little girl in my class, and she shared out, I wish my teacher knew I don't have a friend to play with me. And when the rest of the class heard that, they really stepped up and they kind of surrounded her and started, asking her to play at recess and having her have a place to sit. And so it was really an example of how the solution for a lot of the problems that our students face can be found within their own community. A lot of the times we want to bring in outside help or outside people to fix things, but a lot of the times there's the resource already there that just needs to be mobilized to help our students.
Any other questions?
How long do you picture yourself staying in the classroom?
How long do I picture myself staying in the classroom? My goal is to be a classroom teacher until I get really, really good at it. So I feel like that is indefinite. I'd really like to be a teacher for a long time. One of my goals is to become a national board certified teacher. So I really value that, and I feel like that'll take several years to do. So my immediate plans are to stay a third grade teacher. Yeah. We got our teacher voice.
You said this wasn't your dream job. What was your dream job and you regret not doing what you thought?
I felt like when I was a kid, I wanted to do something where people took me seriously, and I don't know what that was. In college, I changed my major 5 times. So I thought about just kind of working in business. That was my idea in my head, because I wanted to be respected and important. And I never really thought that teaching could fulfill that for me, but it really has.
I'm wondering what some of your personal goals are in terms of growing capacity with teacher leadership.
Growing growing capacity with teacher leadership. I think it's really important to let teachers know just what an impact that they can have with other teachers. This is my 4th year of teaching, so I'm like a baby teacher. I haven't been doing much, but I feel like in that time I've really tried to take like chances, and I was just talking with this gentleman here who was in a PD that I did 2 years ago about social studies, and I really think that you don't have to wait to become like some like honored expert to make an impact. Like you can really try something out and it can impact others. I think, like I said, I'd been doing this lesson in my classroom for 3 years, but it stayed in my classroom. Like not even the teachers across the hall knew about it. Like it was just mine. And there's probably some version of the same lesson that you've done in your classroom too. But I think sharing it really was powerful. So I think it's important to really ignite the power of collaboration in our teachers and let them know like just how important that is to share with other people.
What's next for I Wish My Teacher Knew? What are you going to do? Either build on it or come up with something different?
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. I really did not expect this to take off in any sort of way, but I've gotten some opportunities because of it. And I think what I would like to continue to do is to continue to like elevate my students' voices and let people know what's really happening in our classroom. I think particularly in a city like Denver, there is a lot of ignorance about what's really going on in our city. That 70% of the kids in our city live in poverty. People who don't see that every day are like, that's not true. I don't believe that. I don't see that. And I think once we know that what's really happening with our students, we'll start to take action. I keep waiting for some of these invitations to die down and for me to just continue to be like a teacher in my classroom. But like this invitation to speak here has been really great. And I've actually had the opportunity to write a book. So now I'm writing a book, which I hope I can leverage some of your all ideas to put in there, but writing a book about the social emotional component of our classroom and kind of those tangible things that teachers can do, like a simple I wish my teacher knew lesson, or like having like a secret drawer of food for your students when they're hungry. So like helping like new teachers figure out some of the things that I've learned, and then also learning from other teachers and implementing that in my classroom and sharing that is what's next for me. I know.
So thinking about I wish my teacher knew and like the readiness to share piece, what that looks like. Have you heard what that looks like in a 3rd grade level versus thinking about like 8th grade or 12th grade? Do you get the same sorts of responses, or does it differ based on your students emotionally or at and how long they lived in these situations?
Well, that was kind of what's shocking to me. One of the first teachers I connected with on Twitter when I first shared the note was a high school teacher. And he did in his high school classroom, and I was shocked that like the same thing that worked with 8-year-olds could work with like 17-year-olds. But he got some really honest responses too that helped him teach. I've gotten I've seen some teachers of older kids have their kids like tweet out anonymously what they wish their teacher knew, so kind of leveraging social media. But overall, I think that just this one question of what do you want your teacher to know is really engaging at all levels. So I've heard kindergarten teachers do it, and I've heard high school teachers do it, but I also, and this is really cool, I got a call from the Vice Admiral of the Coast Guard, and I looked it up, and Vice Admiral's like, big deal. He did I wish my admiral knew with like 1,000 of his subordinates, and he like called me and was like, thank you, young lady, for teaching me. And it was, that's really cool. I also have a cousin who works in the corporate world, and he did this with his employees, and he like, I wish my boss knew, and that was really enlightening for him. But as far as the range of comments, I've noticed a lot of Like, I wish my teacher knew that I have this struggle going on, whatever that may be. I just wish my teacher knew I was struggling with this. And I've seen that in like all sorts of handwriting and at all age levels, is that I wish my teacher knew I had this struggle. Kind of a segue out of that, I've gotten some really interesting responses from this. I've talked with teachers. One teacher told me that she was able to get a few of her students out of abusive situations because this was an outlet for them to reach out and ask for help. And I got a like 2-page handwritten letter from a middle school student that said, my teacher did this in my classroom, and I told him that I was feeling suicidal. And because of this, my teacher's been able to get me help, and I feel like there's hope. And like, I got goosebumps just saying that, but just like this one little sentence has really kind of gotten a lot bigger than itself, but it's been really powerful. And so, you know, you can do like just pass out the cards and do like, I wish my teacher knew, but kind of like living out that value of like, hey, I care about what's going on in your life, and I can help you beyond fractions, and I can help you beyond just like sounding out this word. Like, I care about you and I want to help you with your problems too. It's been really important. Ooh, I wish my principal knew. You know, I have a really great principal, and she's not here, so I'm not just saying that. Jody Kerrigan at Dow Elementary, and I feel like very supported by her. I mean, I think she knows, but, you know, I guess I would say, like, I wish my teacher knew that teaching 28 kids is not the same as teaching, like, 22 kids. You know, I have, like, a really huge and diverse class this year that they're all my favorites already. But, like, I have some kids who are really going to be challenging this year, and I feel like I want more support with the level of need that we have in our classroom. Like, wouldn't it be great if, like, when the level of need goes up in your classroom, also the level of support that you get goes up? You know, I was sharing today, I have 11 kids in my class who qualify for special ed services. And that's a new like level of need that I haven't experienced, and I would love a lot more support with that.
We'll take 1, 2, and then 3, and then we're going to have to transition with the time.
I was wondering if you could share with your students, like, I wish my students knew from your perspective.
I've certainly like told them my stories, and that is really interesting to tell your student. Like, they realize, like, oh my gosh, you were something before you were a teacher. That's shocking. But that actually, some other people have started a hashtag on Twitter. I wish my students knew, which I think can be really powerful. Part of my story of being that like angry, angsty, like challenging kid in class was that I was a bully. Like, I was straight up a bully. And I had the attitude of like, I am going to be mean to you before you're going to be mean to me. And I've shared that with my class, and like, for like weeks afterwards, they're like, Miss Swartz was a bully. Did you know Miss Swartz was a bully? And I think for them, it was really, enlightening that like, no, I'm not perfect. And yes, I have struggled. But we can help each other through it. So I've shared that because I don't want them to go through that same pain that I went through, because being a bully is horrible. Do we have anybody admitting that they were like a kid bully? No, just me? Okay. But like, that's just me. But like, I'm talking to you like for real, it's awful. Because like and I tell this to my students, I'm like, it feels bad to be mean to people. Like, your body feels bad when you're mean to people, And so I think that you get a lot of mileage out of being honest with your students and sharing your own life with your students.
So did you continuously believe, or just only one time lesson that they throughout the year they become
You know, I've got that question a lot. I've done it about once a year with my students, but I feel like there's opportunity to do it more with your students. But like I said, like living out that question of like, what do you need me to know every day? So if it's written down in this lesson, or if it's just in a conversation, or like checking in with the kid, like, oh, hey, how'd this go? Or how was your weekend? Or what's going on with this? I think that that's another way to leverage just this idea of like, I care about what happens to you outside of my class.
And then last question.
I guess I've thought about a few different things that you're speaking, and one of which is, talking about the book that you might write about supporting the social emotional needs of students. I really think a lot about the social emotional needs of teachers as well. And I'm wondering, in your 4 years, have you experienced really like any periods of burnout or feeling that the job is too large, or you can't impact as many students as you wish you could? And if so, how have you sort of moved through that and come out on the other side? You're super positive.
Yeah, that's a great question. Does anyone feel like they've ever like felt like they want to quit or they can't do it? Yeah, when I was talking about writing this book, which is really cool. I have a co-writer, so like I write things and then she like fixes it, make it make sense, which is great. But she asked me like, what is the hardest thing about teaching? And I had to think about it, and I was like, well, the hardest thing about teaching is just constantly feeling like you're failing, or that you're not good enough, or that nothing that you've ever done is going to help, or you just can't put out all the fires, or and I feel that way all the time. So please don't like interpret from this that like I'm like, yes, I can go conquer teaching, because a lot of the time, like yesterday, I felt like I don't know if I can do it. For me, I mean, I haven't won this struggle yet of feeling like a really confident teacher, and sometimes I feel kind of like, oh, like, why am I being asked to stand up here and speak when, I'm not even the best teacher on like my hallway, and why am I being asked this? But I just kind of think, like, I want to model confidence for my students. So even if it's not always there, I want to model. But like, I feel like what I say matters and I can help. Like, I want to model that for my students. But my conversations and like my end of year conversations with my principal have always been like, you need to have balance in your life. You need to like go home at a reasonable hour. You can't be doing this. I mean, I wish I had a nice little answer for like, here's how to feel great about teaching in a really, really challenging environment. For me, I go to church, and that really helps. That's not the case for a lot of people, but for me, it really kind of recharges me and encourages me. I know a lot of people where the answer to that is like to go hiking. But yeah, what do you do when you feel like you're never going to be done? Like that's the overwhelming feeling. Is like, I'm never going to be done. I'm never going to do it perfectly. And so I wish I could get to a point where I am like enjoying that constant revision instead of feeling overwhelmed by it. That's my goal. Yeah.
Awesome. If we could give Kyle one more round. We're going to transition. Our first breakout session starts in about 5 minutes. So if you have not looked through this already in your program, there is a schedule and also descriptions of each breakout session. So you guys can choose which sessions you'd like to participate in. The classrooms are all on this side of the building. There's 2 downstairs and 3 upstairs, so feel free to kind of find your way. And then we'll begin in about 5 minutes. Thanks, guys.
Yay! Thank you. This was really great.
And then, yeah, I'll take all those cords I made you.
Okay, there it is.